At the beginning of the story, it shows the city of Gangnam, which is still a rural area in the 70s. This area is planned to be a new Seoul because Seoul is overpopulated and there are many land grabs. Then, a man named Kim Jung-ju took a helicopter to see the entire city of Gangnam from the sky. He is interested in investing in that area. Then there were two people picking up trash. They are Kim Jong-da and Ba Young-gai who live in the village. They have to collect food scraps every day to survive. Sometimes they have to deal with the police who control their territory from the homeless. They live in a simple hut, and when night falls, the cold wind can penetrate the hut until Young-gai got cold. The next day, the sleeping men were startled by the roof collapsing. They rushed out to see what was happening. It turned out that a group of gangsters were tearing down their hut with an excavator. Not accepting that, their shack was demolished. They tried to fight the messenger at the location. On the other hand, there was a group of men holding a meeting. They were three gangster leaders named Yang, Nam, and Jang, and there were two politicians named Mr. Park and Mr. Seo. Then they asked the gangster leaders for gathering their men. The gangsters were asked to riot during the general meeting. The politicians did this to stop the presidential election. In return, they promised to give business licenses in the western Seoul area to the gangster leaders. After that, Kang came to see Nam. He reminded Nam not to get involved in politics. However, Nam still wanted to do it to get a business license. Then Nam ordered Kang to recruit a lot of people to riot during the general leadership meeting. On the other hand, Jong-da and Young-gai are arrested after attacking an excavator and taken to the gangster headquarters. There, they are both kicked and beaten. Later, Kang came to see his men to ask about the number of people who had gathered. His men, let's say 40 people, but Kang says it's still a small number. Kang also sees Jong-da and Young-gai there. Then, Kang asked them to join his gang. On the same day, they were taken to a building in Seoul by bus. On the way, Young-gai finished the milk and counted the money the gangster gave him. Later, a man hints that they are at a peace party camp. Their task is to get into the building, destroy everything, then leave. Once there, they destroy everything in the building until the event is stopped. Young-gai, who felt sick from drinking stale milk, left Jong-da to go to the toilet. When Jong-da was standing up, suddenly a man hit him with a stick from behind and he fell down. Shortly after, the sound of police sirens is heard. They disperse and leave. Jong-da is confused because Young-gai hasn't been seen. He goes to look for Young-gai in the restroom, but he's not there. Jong-da then goes home and chooses to wait for Young-gai in his hut. However, until nightfall, Young-gai hasn't come home. The next day, Jong-da goes to the gangster headquarters. He asks if he can still live in this area, since he has nowhere to live. Kang then invites him to go to his house. Arriving at Kang's house, they were treated to a meal by Kang's daughter, Yoon-hai. In addition, Jong-da was provided a room to rest. As Jong-da was sleeping, he was suddenly startled by a loud noise from outside. He immediately checked and saw Kang, who was attacked by other gangsters. Fortunately from the attack, only Kang's leg was injured. The next day, there was a mourning of Nam's death by murder. They came to gather with other gangster leaders. There Kang said he would disband his gangsters. He wanted his men to live like normal people. He didn't want his men to end up like him, who was paralyzed, or like Nam, who had lost his life. Long story short, 3 years passed. Young-gai was seen hanging out with some men. This means he is still alive, and now he is the financial manager of the hotel under the control of Boss Yang. On the other hand, Boss Yang becomes Mr. Park's assistant on the different side of Mr. Seo. Meanwhile, Jong-da is still living with Kang and his daughter. He is already considered family by Kang. After retiring from the gangster world, he now opens a laundry business. While Jong-da is having dinner with Kang and Yoon-hai, a man comes looking for Kang. The man wanted to collect a debt from him. The man threatens to burn down his house and its contents if he doesn't pay his debt. Jong-da silently overhears their conversation and intends to help him. On the other hand, Boss Yang is holding a meeting with his men. He tells them that he will authorize Young-gai to manage more of his business. That obviously makes the other men feel jealous. Unfortunately, Young-gai, who had been trusted by Boss Yang, betrayed him. He had an affair with Boss Yang's girlfriend named Soo-jung. Meanwhile, Mr. Park meets Mr. Kim, who asks him to seize Gangnam land because Gangnam has the potential to become a big city that will match Seoul. The money from the land grabbing can be used as their political expenses. Meanwhile, Jong-da goes to see a woman to borrow money. She's a real estate entrepreneur named Madam Min. Jong-da says he wants to pay off all of Kang's debts. Unexpectedly, Madam Min is willing to lend him money. However, on the condition that Jong-da must be willing to help her to take some land in Gangnam. Jong-da agreed and was willing to help her. The next day, Jong-da and Madam Min went to Gangnam to buy land there. They could trick the farmers into selling their land at a low price. Then they would sell it at a very high price and make a huge profit. When they succeeded in their mission, Madam Min gave Jong-da money in return. Then Madam Min offered him another job with even greater rewards. She asks him to seize land in Jang's territory. At night, when Jong-da is walking home, he sees Yoon-hai with her boyfriend in the car. Then Jong-da invites Yoon-hai to go home together. Jong-da asks Yoon-hai to get married soon, and he will work to pay off his father's debt. Arriving home, they are surprised to see that the debt collectors have surrounded and burned Kang's belongings. Jong-da immediately attacks them and throws money at them. Finally, Jong-da confessed to Kang that he went back to being a gangster again for money. Jong-da said he would rebuild his gangsters and restore Kang's position, but Kang was silent and still didn't say much at that time. The next day, Jong-da and his friends infiltrate Jang's place to steal the files and land titles that have been collected. But just as they want to leave, he sees Jang's gangsters torturing a man. After Jong-da peeks at him, it turns out that the man they are torturing is Yang-jae, and one of the men there is the same person who stabbed Kang. When Yang-jae wants to be buried alive, Jong-da comes to help him and attacks the gangsters. Later, Jong-da takes Yang-jae home to treat him. Yang-jae says that when the riots happened, he went home and got on the wrong bus. Yang-jae says that he is currently Boss Yang's assistant. On the other hand, Mr. Kim and Mr. Park meet with an MP named Moon to discuss the expansion of his area in Gangnam. However, Mr. Moon says that some other areas have been taken over by Mr. Seo, who is assisted by Madam Min. Elsewhere, Jong-da meets Madam Min. He hands over the stolen certificate to her. In return, he asks for money and a piece of land and wants to meet Mr. Seo. Madam Min then promises to introduce them soon. At the same time, Soo-jung meets Yang-jae in the car. She asks him to move and live in the south. Yang-jae does love her, but he can't marry her now. Hearing this, Soo-jung gets upset and leaves in the car. As Yang-jae gets out of the car to chase So-jung, a man named Hyun-bak sees the two of them. Hyun-bak threatens to report this happened to Boss Yang if Yang-jae doesn't give him the position he wants. Yang-jae, who did not want to obey, and then killed him. Then Yang-jae asks Jong-da to help throw Hyun-bak's body into the lake. Then he invites Jong-da to work together to attack Jang. They immediately headed to Jang's headquarters and killed all of Jang's men who sided with Mr. Park. The next day, Jong-da is met with Mr. Seo by Madam Min. Jong-da said he wanted to join Mr. Seo and he had killed Jang's men. Mr. Seo, who heard this, was obviously very happy and immediately accepted it. Arriving home, Kang immediately beat Jong-da, knowing Jong-da was still a gangster. Kang is furious, but it's too late. For the second time, Jong-da invited him to become a gangster again. After Kang thought about it, he accepted the offer to improve their family's economy. Then Jong-da introduces Mr. Seo to Kang. Then Mr. Seo says Jong-da will take Jang's place. On the other hand, after discussing with Jong-da and her father, Yoon-hai decided to marry her boyfriend. A few months later, Yang-jae came to see Jong-da and asked him to cooperate in attacking Boss Yang. Yang-jae does this to take over all his businesses, but Jong-da refuses. He reminds him that their purpose in becoming gangsters is to fulfill their dream of having a decent house to live in. At night, Yang-jae meets with his gangster friend Won to plan something. Yang-jae wants to use Jong-da to get rid of Boss Yang. In a different place, Zhang is busy collecting certificates from farmers and other landowners every day. One of them he once met at a nightclub. The landowner is named Jin. Zhang easily got his certificate by trapping his son. After getting it, Zhang went to Mr. Sio to give him all the certificates. When Zhang walked home, suddenly a mysterious person hit his head from behind. It turns out that this is part of Yang Jai and Wan's plan. Zhang was taken by them to their headquarters. When he woke up, Boss Yang immediately tortured him because he found out that Zhang had tricked Director Jin into giving his certificate. Boss Yang asks Zhang to hand over the certificate if he wants to live. Then Yang Jai went to see Kang. Arriving at Kang's house, Yang Jai immediately told him the news about Zhang who had been arrested by Boss Yang's men. They both planned something to help him. The next day, the battered Zhang is fed by Wan. Apparently, there was a razor blade in the food. That's when Kang and his men arrive. Kang then pretends to hand over the certificate. Once they find out where Zhang is, there is a very epic battle there. In short, they were finally defeated and Zhang was saved. Hearing the news, Boss Yang scolded all his men. Among his men, there are rumors of traitors. Indirectly, Kang returned to the gangster world after retiring for several years. However, bad luck must befall them. Kang and his men were arrested by the police for slander. Zhang gets word that Boss Yang is the reason they were imprisoned, because he has insider acquaintances in the police. News of Kang's fraud eventually spread throughout the city, so that Yunhai was also affected. At that time, her husband was in an economic crisis. Yunhai was tortured and then sent away to find her father's money. Yunhai's husband thought that the gangster leader must have a lot of money. Yunhai then went to see Zhang and told him everything. Later, Zhang went to her husband and gave him some money and said, "Don't hurt her anymore." That night, a drunk Mun was approached by a woman. Without thinking, he immediately took her to the hotel. In the morning, Mun was shocked to see Zhang and his men entering his room and taking pictures of him with someone. When he woke up from his drunken state, he saw the woman beside him who turned out to be a man. Mun is shocked, and he is accused of being gay. Zhang threatens him to obey his orders. If he refuses, Zhang will give the photo to the media and his wife. Later, Zhang goes to Mr. Sio and asks for help, so that Kang and his friends can be released. Mr. Sio, who saw that he was doing very well, was willing to fulfill his request. After that, Zhang, Yang Jai, and Madam Min meet. Zhang says he wants to get land in this area. Hearing that, Yang Jai said, "This area belongs to Boss Yang. If you want this land, finished of Boss Yang first. Let's attack Boss Yang after my men are free." It looks like Yang Jai's plan to use Zhang to take care of Boss Yang worked. Kang and his men are finally free. They gather to celebrate their release. However, Kang suddenly says that he will disband the gangsters. A few days later, Henbok's dead body is found by members of Boss Yang. After that, Yang Jai immediately heads to Zhang. Yang Jai said, "Let's quickly prepare the troops to jointly attack Boss Yang. It looks like our plan is known." Zhang then replies, "My troops have dispersed, but I will try to get everyone together again." When Yang Jai wants to gather all his men, he wants to see Wan. Yang Jai is surprised to see Wan tied up and tortured. Not long after, Boss Yang's men come and beat him up. He is brought before Boss Yang, as Yang Jai is accused of killing Henbok. But unexpectedly, Yang Jai says that Zhang was the one who killed Henbok. To prove that Yang Jai is not the culprit, he is asked to prove his loyalty by killing Kang. Meanwhile, while Zhang is gathering his men, he gets news that Yunhai is being abused again by her husband and has even been hospitalized. Zhang is obviously furious. Then, he immediately looked for Yunhai's husband, who was playing gambling, and finished him off. At the same time, Yang Jai suddenly came to see Kang. He killed him as proof of his loyalty to Boss Yang. Yang Jai and Wan then plan to kill Zhang because it will be very dangerous if he finds out who killed Kang. Because of Yang Jai's slander, all of Boss Yang's men plan to attack Zhang at Kang's funeral. But strangely, Yang Jai tells Zhang about the attack. He offers to cooperate against Boss Yang when that day comes. It turns out that what Yang Jai said really happened. During the funeral, Boss Yang's men came and immediately attacked Zhongda and his men. Eventually, there was a fight between the two gangster camps under a very heavy rain. Then came Yang Jai's group. Here, Boss Yang's group was surprised. Yang Jai helped them instead. In the end, Zhongda and Yang Jai could defeat Boss Yang's men. Meanwhile, Mr. Park was finally arrested by the State Intelligence Agency, while Boss Yang disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, Mr. Seo invited Zhongda to meet. He asked Zhongda to kill all of Mr. Park's men, including Yang Jai and Boss Yang. Mr. Seo promised to give Zhongda part of the land in Gangnam if Zhongda succeeded. Zhongda immediately attacks Boss Yang's headquarters. When he interrogated Boss Yang's men, he got a very surprising fact. One of Boss Yang's men says that Yang Jai is the one who killed Kang, and Yang Jai is also planning to kill Zhongda. Hearing this, Zhongda is clearly shocked. After Boss Yang disappeared, Yang Jai took his place and married Sujung. That night, when Zhongda is looking at Kang's photo album, he accidentally finds Kang's family card tucked away in the album. Unexpectedly, Kang had put Zhongda's name on the family card list. After seeing the paper, he couldn't hold tears and then cry. The next day, Zhongda goes to the movie theater where Yang Jai and Boss Yang met. Yang Jai asks him to come there and accompany him to finish off Boss Yang. Meanwhile, Yang Jai's men are waiting for Zhongda to kill him in the bathroom. Knowing that Yang Jai has betrayed him, Boss Yang wants to shoot him. However, Zhongda suddenly strangles him from behind. After Boss Yang died, Yang Jai asked Zhongda to take his body to the bathroom. Zhongda, who knew Yang Jai's evil plan, then refused. Zhongda told him that all of Boss Yang's men had died. After that, Zhongda asked, "Why did you kill Kang?" Hearing that question, Yang Jai was surprised. Before he can answer, Zhongda suddenly shoots him in the shoulder. Yang Jai finally confesses and apologizes for killing Kang, because if he didn't do it, Boss Yang would have killed him. Due to his great anger, Zhongda doesn't care that he still wants to kill Yang Jai. Then Yang Jai reminds him that they are both brothers. These words make Zhongda change his mind and not want to kill his friend. Zhongda will let Yang Jai go as long as he never appears before him again. Since then, they have been completely separated. A few days later, Zhongda, who was on his way home to meet Yun Hai, he was shot dead on the train. Meanwhile, Yang Jai also died while in the car. Apparently, the person who killed them both was Mr. Seo's men. Mr. Seo is afraid that the two of them will become his rivals. Meanwhile, Yun Hai is still waiting for Zhongda to pick her up on the side of the road. She just kept waiting without knowing that Zhongda had died on the way. Several years have passed and Gangnam has turned into a metropolitan city. At the end of the story, it appears that Mr. Seo is the ruler of Gangnam, and then the movie ended.